Feminine energy is the source of creativity, balance, and inspiration. The energy has always been associated with creation and birth, and it has a lot of potent force. I want you to look at all the literature, culture, spiritual, and philosophical. Feminine energy is inherently linked to creation, whether it's the birthing of a child, an idea, or a work of art. And this creative energy brings forth innovation, imagination, and new possibilities. It's the ultimate source of life, and it holds immense power. It is the only energy to have connection to the earth, because earth is the mother, and the earth is feminine. And feminines are always regenerating and nurturing. The feminine energy has been uncared for, disrespected, and made to always be unbalanced. The feminine energy has been faced with masculine opposition rather than complementing the feminine energy. It will always be growing, transforming, and it will always be giving evolution. Women have always played the role, either directly or indirectly, in inspiring and shaping men's endeavors. Women's contributions were obscured, appropriated, or even claimed by a lot of men. Women are the inspiration for men. In many ancient cultures, goddesses were revered as sources of wisdom, power, and inspiration. For example, in ancient Greece, the Muses were 9 goddesses who inspired humans in various arts and sciences. In Indian mythology, there was the goddess of knowledge, music, arts, and wisdom. Throughout history, the women have been muses for male artists, writers, and even musicians. Dante Alighieri was inspired by the Beatrice in his Divine Comedy. Shakespeare had his Dark Lady of the Sonnets, and numerous painters, from Picasso to Klimt, they drew inspiration from women in their lives. In many historical records and tales, men in power had female advisors or confidants. For example, while not always depicted favorably, figures like Cleopatra and Bolian or Eleanor of Aquitaine wielded significant influence over men in their lives and, by extension, their kingdoms or domains. Historically, many societies have been patriarchal, where men held the majority of public and authoritative roles. However, this doesn't negate the fact that women influence decisions behind the scenes. Often, their influence was indirect because societal norms didn't allow them a direct platform. Women have made numerous direct contributions to various fields which has been overshadowed, appropriated, or claimed by their male counterparts or the society at large. There have been countless intellectual partnerships where women and men collaborated as equals, but due to societal norms, the male partner received more recognition. Nowadays, modern historians, feminists, and scholars are working to unearth the spotlight of women's contributions and influences throughout history. The influence women had on men and society shouldn't just be viewed in terms of being muses or source of inspiration. Women have been leaders, thinkers, warriors, creators, and revolutionaries in their own right. The feminine challenges and reshapes the roles that limit masculines. They're always encouraging the masculines to embrace their nurturing, intuitive sides, taking leadership and decision-making roles. The feminine energy is receptive and has emotional understanding, and they guide societies towards higher emotional intelligence. An unchecked dominant male ego is a manifestation of patriarchal values, emphasizing male superiority and authority while minimizing or dismissing the roles women have in it. The unchecked male ego values stoicism and emotional suppression. Their hyper-competitive nature leads them to unethical behaviors and strained relationships. They have a limited mindset that reduces collaborative efforts from the workplace and all the way to interpersonal relationships. The dominant male ego correlates with harmful, risk-taking behaviors, resulting in physical harm and negative outcomes. Their dismissal of emotions or even empathy hinders the development of emotional intelligence, which is the critical skill for understanding themselves and for them to connect with others. Their unchecked dominant ego resists admitting mistakes or even taking responsibility, and this stifles their personal growth, and that results in their repeated patterns of harmful behavior. The male dominant male ego is so attached to masculine ideals that it leads them to resist against personal development, learning, and being able to adapt to societal norms. They are looking for validation either through their achievements, through their possessions, or their social status. They are in the never-ending chasing for more at their own detriment, at the expense of their own personal fulfillment. The dominant male ego finds their feminine energy as inferior and threatening. That is why they misunderstand and devalue women, and they miss the opportunity to benefit from the balance of insights that embracing the feminine energy can offer them. The unchecked male ego can influence workplace environments. Hierarchical, top-down leadership models can stifle collaboration, innovation, and diversity of thought. This might manifest as disregarding input, particularly from women or those not aligning with masculine norms, leading to less inclusive decision-making. Boys are socialized from a young age to prioritize competition over cooperation, assertiveness over listening, and achievement over empathy. This socialization hinders the development of a well-rounded emotional and social skill set. Their ego-driven motives with aggression and dominance has affected humanity's relationships with nature. They overexploited the resources without having respect for the environment. They are conquering nature with their ego-driven motives. Look at politics and governance. Their leadership qualities are influenced by their dominant male ego, always aggressive and dominating and always controlling. Their leadership overlooks the importance of diplomacy, collaboration, and consensus building. Look at religion. It was the males that brought it into existence to even further dominate the male ego. And this led to subjugation of women and gender power imbalances within the religious communities. Look at families and parenting dynamics. Their male ego made them distant providers rather than nurturing parents. They are deprived of having deeper relationships with their children and places all of those burdens on the women. Look at our justice system. It's always male violence. If you were to be mugged right now, would that come from a man or would that come from a woman? What numbers of males versus women are in prison? If you look at the numbers, there is a disproportionately high number of males in the criminal justice system, and they are all men, dominance and aggression. Males are conditioned to form societal bonds based on mutual activities, such as sports or work, rather than emotional dialogue. They have a struggle to form deep and emotionally supported friendships among men. Their ego prevents them from giving acknowledgement of inspiration from the feminine sources. Men have a lack of emotional intimacy in relationships. Men are incapable of conflict resolution because they never seek to understand and to compromise. Their male ego is always pushing them to dominate and to win all of the arguments, and that leads to more prolonged and unresolved disputes. And let's look at the military and defense. They rather be aggressive rather than being diplomatic. These are the same men that have kept us in wars and right now in unnecessary wars. And let's look at the domain of scientific research and exploration. Their aggressive drive to be the first or the best, it overshadows the collaborative spirit of scientific discovery. Their ego-driven approach leads to ethical lapses, such as stealing credits or pushing boundaries without proper precautions. Let me take you to sports. Their hyper-competitive attitudes influence how sports are played, often emphasizing win at all costs over teamwork, sportsmanship, or even plain enjoyment. Should we look at consumerism? They have a need to assert dominance and status that leads to consumer behaviors, and that's rooted in displaying wealth, and that leads us to an unsustainable economic practice and earth degradation. What about the urban development? Cities and spaces are designs reflecting bigger is better, rather than sustainability, inclusivity, or harmony with nature. Should we look at philanthropy? Their charitable endeavors become competitive, focusing on the magnitude of donations or the recognition received rather than the actual impact or goodwill. Please let me know, why do we still have people that are hungry and poor? If it's not male dominance and greed, I don't know what it is. Let's look at animal rights and conservation. Historically, hunting was often led by males, and that was their sign of dominance and bravery. And even today, trophy hunting and similar practices, primarily male-driven, contradict the more nurturing, protective aspects of conservation. The education and the educational system. The academic environments, they lean towards stirring competition rather than collaboration. They're always pushing to be the best, often seen as a masculine trait, and that can overshadow the benefits of collective learning and knowledge sharing. Economic structures and the finance sector are influenced by the risk-taking and dominance. The drive to maximize profits often prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability and societal welfare. Let's look at personal growth and spirituality. Many men feel discouraged from exploring their spiritual path or personal growth avenues because they perceive it as a soft or feminine, potentially depriving them of holistic personal development and actually becoming of use. Let's look at the space exploration. The narrative conquering space can overshadow the intrinsic value of discovery, understanding, and the pursuit of knowledge. Military strategies. Most warfare strategies and tactics are developed from a male perspective, and they emphasize aggression and dominance over diplomacy and conflict resolution. And journalism. War and political correspondence historically were predominantly men, and that often led to a one-dimensional perspective on issues. Infrastructure projects, anywhere from the roads to the buildings, they prioritize grandiosity and they display over-functionality, sustainability, and societal well-being. Let's look at archaeology and history. The past's interpretation often highlighted male leaders, warriors, and influences. This led to the overshadowing of the significant roles women played in various cultures and epochs. Let's look at Hollywood and film industry. From directors to producers, men largely control the narrative, often affecting how stories are told and which stories are greenlit. What about the music? From compositions to song lyrics, male perspective often dominates, sometimes perpetuating stereotypical or overshadowing female contributions. Look at children's literature. Many classical children's stories highlight male protagonists on adventures, while the female characters are often in supportive or rescue-needed roles. Should we talk about product design? Many products, especially in the tech department, they're usually designed from a primarily male perspective, and they overlook the different needs and preferences of the broader audience. Male-driven perspectives can dominate crisis situations, sometimes prioritizing aggressive solutions over dialogue and reconciliation. What about the science fiction and fantasy? These genres, while imaginative, they mostly portray male characters in dominant, active roles and women in passive or supporting roles. What about horror and thriller genres? In movies and literatures, women are frequently the victims, perpetuating stereotypes of women as vulnerable and in need of protection. Let's look at philosophy. Philosophical traditions and schools of thought, especially in Western contexts, they primarily focus on male philosophers. The women philosophers, though they're present, historically, they have been less recognized. Let's look at the toys and early education. Toys and educational materials for children, they can perpetuate gender roles, with boys often being encouraged towards games that emphasize competition, dominance, or aggression. And let's go to the cosmetics and beauty industry. While largely targeted at women, the beauty industry has historically been led by men who often decided the standards of beauty for women. How about venture capitalism? The startup investment world leans heavily male, with a lot of female entrepreneurs receiving a disproportionately smaller amount of funding compared to their male counterparts. I can go on and on and on about the lacked male ego. It's unending. Patriarchy. Look into it, discover it, change yourself, become a better human being, and see what the truth is and what is happening.